Welcome to Human Marketing, a weekly podcast for B2B marketers unpacking how brands can stay authentic, demonstrate authority, and build trust as AI floods our feeds with content. I'm Chris Nelson, founder of Human Video. We remotely produce podcasts and other video content with real humans and just the right amount of soul. I'm really pleased to have Phil Treagus-Evans with us today from Giraffe Social, and he's the CEO and co-founder of Giraffe Social, but also the author of a new book, Human First Marketing. So welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Chris. Nice to be here.
Talking before we started, Phil, like our worlds are pretty closely aligned. My company, Human Video, is all about creating authentic, kind of human first content. And I think from kind of looking into what you do as well, like what you do at Giraffe is very much about human first marketing. Can you just to kind of start, tell me a little bit about your journey to this point, if that's okay, on like getting to becoming, I guess, co-founder of Giraffe, and what kind of came before that? Like what's your journey in marketing or anything else been to get to that point?
Sure. So Giraffe has been around for around 13 years. And before Giraffe, Kane, who's the co-founder of the company, we met working in a shop whilst we were sort of going through education. So started working in a shop when I was around 16. He was a year older. We became good friends during that time. And towards the end of our sort of time in education, we both agreed that we had a bit of an entrepreneurial itch and we wanted to start a business. And I think with the naivety that you can only really have as a 21-year-old, we decided to start our own social network. Felt like the obvious choice. So we did, and we spent all of our money on a very, very complicated website that we had designed, and we had no money left for marketing. So we did what we knew, and what we knew was social media. So we started to market it through social and ended up having around 1,000 users in the first few weeks. Crashed our web designer's server on launch night, which sounds cool, but was really, really scary at the time. And yeah, we quickly realized that we didn't really have the capital or knowledge to really make a good go of this and to continue it. But luckily, whilst we were planning that, we actually started Giraffe. We thought maybe let's start a safer business. And we started Giraffe, and I always joke that the website we started before we planned for a year, whereas Giraffe we started in an afternoon. Didn't overthink it, just got a website out. And really the reason for that was that a lot of our friends who were in bands, and we had family members who had businesses, were kind of seeing what we were doing and saying, you know, how could you use social media for my business or for my band? And it just kind of took off from there. So that's sort of the origin story, if you like. And, you know, we're 13 years in, and it was probably around 2 or 3 years ago that I started to think about this idea of human first marketing. And the reason for that was a few things. One, obviously AI, which I'm sure we'll talk about in great depth, was sort of appearing on the horizon. On top of that, the results that we were seeing from sort of more traditional methods were starting to decline. It felt like paid advertising was becoming more and more expensive, less and less wanted. There's a lot of ad fatigue. And on top of that, we found that consumers they had a more heightened level of curiosity and consciousness around purchasing decisions, who they do business with, you know, what's in their food, like all of these like extra details that haven't always been there. And I think over the last few years have really kind of heightened. And yeah, we sort of stumbled on the commonality between all the strategies that we're using that work are people. Like when there's people at the center of it, it works better. And then you started to see influencer marketing explode, which again is quite people focused. things like employee advocacy. We're doing a lot more of that for our clients. We're doing a lot more sort of social media for executives and helping executives manage their LinkedIn presences. And yeah, so it kind of all came together, and there was a bit of an aha moment where I phoned Kane at about 10 o'clock at night and said, I've got this idea. I'm calling it human first marketing. And yeah, it's just sort of spiraled from there, really. And it's kind of all come together, and the book is kind of the culmination of that journey.
I love that. That's a fab origin story. And like, so like 15 years ago, you started the agency, is that right?
About 13
13,
years.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it has been, I mean, the world has changed a lot. The world of marketing has changed a lot in that time, I'm sure. Like what is like the, I guess, day to day of Giraffe now? I mean, what sort of scale is the company? What do you do for your customers? What's your main kind of service offerings?
Yeah, so we're a team of around, I think there's 15 or 16 of us now. We're based on the South Coast in Portsmouth. However, we work predominantly hybrid. So we do have an office in Portsmouth, and we meet as a full team 2-3 times a month. But we work with all sorts of clients, all different industries, B2B, B2C. And our main offering is social. We specialize in everything that can happen on social. So from the organic, so content creation, community management, through to paid ads, through to influencer marketing. If it happens on social, it's kind of our thing. But in the last 6 months, 12 months, obviously with the book, we're in the process of really repackaging and sort of introducing some new services that are a lot more human first focused. Some of that's happened organically because we're attracting clients that are interested in what this human first thing means and what should they be doing. And as I said earlier, a lot of our clients now, the work we're doing with them is on sort of human first tactics, if you like.
Brilliant, cool. I see it on the shelf behind you, but I've got my copy ready. I've already, I mean, I was looking back. I first kind of stumbled across you on LinkedIn when I think you posted like 4 images of like the possible cover of the book.
Yeah.
And it leapt out of my feed because it's like human first marketing. It's like, this is everything I've been looking for. This is like, because I started human video sort of middle of last year, but kind of officially at the start of 2025. So it's early days. I'm like formulating all these thoughts of what it means and what we're trying to do for people. And it's kind of a lonely journey as well. At that point, it's just me. Like I have a couple of contractors currently, but it's still just me. So there's a lot of conversations about, all of this happening inside my head. So it's just like, it was a real moment for me to kind of see somebody's written an awesome book all about this, and I think I was looking back, I sent this like slightly excitable connection request to you, saying this is awesome. We definitely need to talk. So I mean, kind of bring you on to the book. Human first marketing, the art of being seen, trusted, and remembered, which I absolutely love. Give me the kind of the overview, the thesis behind it all. Like, what's the headline over it? Dive into that a little bit for me, just as an overview.
I'm so glad that you like the subtitle, because
Yeah,
honestly, the most difficult thing about the book was deciding on the title and the subtitle, and then probably the cover. The writing of it sort of flowed out of me, and I didn't find it too challenging. I actually really enjoyed it. But there was something about the finality of a title. And someone said to me at one point, like 99% of people are going to read the title and not the book. Like more people see the title of the book than actually read it. And then suddenly I was sort of entered into a bit of a existential crisis. I remember sitting in a Costa Coffee with a friend of mine, and he had his notepad out, and we were just, okay, what do you like about this? And what do you not like?
what can you remember any of the other options?
My second favorite title that I still like was just Marketing for Humans, which obviously it was sort of a double entendre, and then it's got the sort of marketing for dummies sort of vibe to it. But I was really keen to, and you sort of touched on this earlier, that this is a new area. This isn't, there's 500 books on the topic. It's kind of being written at the moment. And I sort of wanted to really just put the name of what it is on the front cover. So that's why I ended up going with just human first marketing. But the art of being seen, trusted, and remembered. The book was originally going to be called Beyond the Logo. Sort of, the sort of going past just branding and thinking more about the human behind it. So, and then the subtitle for that was going to be The Art of Being Seen. But the more I wrote the book, the more I thought, actually, a lot of this is about trust. And it's also about being memorable and not just a corporate facade. So I've gone off on a complete tangent here talking about the title. But
that's great. That's what I want. Yeah, it's great.
The book is, it was quite a selfish project in the sense that all of the ideas that are in the book were floating around in my head, but it was chaos. And I needed to kind of bring them together into a coherent framework and really question myself. Like on each chapter, think, well, what do I think about this? And what have we done? What's worked? Like what didn't work? Why? And also look into the science behind some of it as well. Like, okay, so this works, but why? What's the psychological theory or sociological theory that backs this? I'm a bit of a nerd. I kind of like looking into that sort of stuff. So the book was, let's see if we can build a framework that allows people to use this. So it's not something I want to just safeguard for Giraffe. I think this is a positive for marketers and for society generally. So the goal of the book was let's understand what this is and then create the framework of how other people can use it.
I love that. It's 432 pages. It's not a small book. There's a lot going on in there. I love that it's full of case studies. Like nearly every other page. Like I spent this morning kind of. I have to hold my hands up. I haven't made my way through the whole thing yet. It's been a bit. I only got it kind of like a week ago. It is a big read, but it's like it's great. I love all the case studies. It's either a case study or like a whole section of here's how you can use this, or here's like a practical application of it, kind of all the way through the book, which is really great. And even just the structure of it, kind of, it does feel like it feels like the agency playbook of, I imagine you had all those thoughts and you were applying them in Giraffe, and it's just like, this is like pulling it all together, is it? Yeah.
That was one of the fun things about it, was having ideas as I was writing and then having a platform to immediately try them. So everything in the book has been tried, tested, reworked. The book's long. We got the interior design of it back, and I had a serious conversation with my editor because she said, this is a bulky book. Like there's a lot in here. And we had a big discussion about whether or not we wanted to trim it. But to be honest, Chris, I've read a lot of business books over the years, and there are some brilliant ones. But there are also some books that I read and think that could have been a blog post.
100%. Yeah.
Where they've taken one small idea and it's kind of been dragged over the length of a book. And I was desperate for it to not be that. I really wanted to write something that was so overflowing with ideas and things you can do and lessons and theory, and that no one could possibly buy it, read it, and feel like they've been shortchanged. There's so much in there, and that's important to me. That's the main reason I wanted to write the book, was so it could help people. So yeah, I probably went a bit overboard, but
no, it's not a criticism at all. I think it's great, and it's I think anyone that dives into it will, like, it's just going to get so much out of it. There's so much of the practical there for someone like me. Like it's I'm holding it in. It's like it is awesome, and I really look forward to kind of diving really deep into it and applying it, because so much of it is applicable for what we do for our customers, and even for me and what I'm doing in terms of building my, I asked about the size of your agency. I have a plan to grow human video. There's a potential to kind of, for there to be more Chris Nelsons and more editors and more remote producers, so that's kind of my dream. And I guess like there's so much in there that I could get out of it. That I know, just even from like your recent posts about it, tell me a little bit about what it's been like to become a published author. Today you had a great post talking about all the messages you received, including my photograph of me in my car going, I got it, tell me a little bit how that has been, how it's been received, how you felt about it being out in the world. Like you've mentioned it a few times in posts. How's all that been?
Yeah, I think it's something that was really important to me was that I walked the walk, and there's no point writing a book on human first marketing and not actually using that as the main form of marketing style for actually talking about the book. So right from when I started, I decided I'm going to share everything. I'm going to share, where I am in writing it, what I'm working on, what's going well, what's not going well. You talked about the covers earlier. Like, I really wanted people to feel like they were on the journey. And I don't think I could have anticipated just how much support I got through the process. It was really, really lovely. People I don't really even know reaching out and supporting. I mean, Chris, we didn't know each other before you reached out. And
yeah, I mean, my question, I guess, is there more people like me? Has it led to more connections and finding other people out in the world with similar views, or it's certainly interested in human first approach?
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I did that was really helpful was I built a cohort of early readers, a collection of people that I trusted to read as I was writing. So some of that was, a collection of people I already know. So like my co-founder read the book and can always trust Kane to give me brutal honesty, which he did in spades. Some of our partner agencies, so other agency founders, some of our clients that we work with at Giraffe, and also some people that I didn't know. That the level of kindness and support that people put in it really sort of, I don't know, made you appreciate humanity, which was on brand, I suppose. I was speaking to a chap called Freddie, who's the head of marketing at the FA, and he's someone I've had on LinkedIn, and we've had brief exchanges in the past. But he offered to help and read the book and sort of become good friends since, and stuff like that has been a really nice sort of byproduct of writing. So yeah, it's been really lovely. The launch day itself was incredibly stressful because I wasn't in the country. So my wife is a destination wedding photographer, which means we travel a lot.
I
And
used to be a wedding photographer. I have
oh, did you?
150 weddings under my belt. Yeah. So before
Very nice.
video, I was a photographer for 10 years.
You know how
I know what that life is. I mean, not so many destinations in my time, but in the video world, I've been really fortunate to have worked in nearly 50 countries
Oh,
around
that's
the world.
amazing.
So
What's your favorite country you've been to?
It's a close tie between Japan and Colombia.
Nice.
I love both for very different reasons. Yeah. I was in Japan. I was only in Japan once, about 6 or 7 years ago, but I got to work kind of in a remote fishing village in the north coast of Japan, as well as, I was in Tokyo, spent a day in Kyoto, did the train and everything, but then spent about a week in this really remote fishing village working with like local folks, and it was amazing. It's just such a different culture. I love the respectful nature of it. The train conductor goes down the carriage, and before he leaves, he turns around and just bows to the whole train carriage. And when the bus is moving away from the station, the ticket guy just bows. I love that. just there's so much respect, and yeah, that whole experience was amazing. But Colombia, for all sorts of wild and wonderful other reasons, not too wild and wonderful, but just really cool place. I was in Medellin in Colombia, and I really love. I've been lots of different parts of South America, but it was fabulous too. Yeah, so I appreciate the world and different cultures and different people. Um,
It's huge. It's something that, if you go back 10 years, my wife and I sat down and planned out what we wanted our life to look like. And one of those things was travel, and trying to find work that could either facilitate travel or sustain it. So obviously my work, occasionally we travel, but predominantly the beauty of what I do is I can do it from anywhere, so long as there's Wi-Fi, which sometimes is difficult. Um, and whereas Leah's business, it takes us all over the world. So she shot a wedding in Barbados a few years back, and it ended up being featured in Vogue, and it just sort of really took off. And since then she's taken us all over the place. So on the day of the launch, I was actually in St. Martin, one of the Caribbean islands. Um, and because of the time difference, I was up at about 2:30 in the morning. Because my whole network's professional, so everyone was sort of clocking into their laptops at 7-8 o'clock. So yeah, I got up at 2:30 and just sat in the dark, just frantically messaging
the,
people.
the glamour, of launch day, and the oh my
Yeah,
goodness. But
exactly.
that's isn't that yeah, the fact that you could do that and the remote thing. So like a big part of the whole point of human video is remote production. So it's we were joking, I was getting you to change your lighting and close your blinds and whatnot. Yeah, we went through a whole process, but that is my life, and it's because so many people work remotely now. The interviews that we conduct every day with people, we're all about real interviews with real human beings, and creating content around that. And we've kind of produced it like this because people are remote, and not just employees are remote, but we create customer testimonials, and those are with people all over the world. And business, especially B2B, is kind of so global now, and many of our clients, they might be based somewhere, but actually their workforce is completely scattered all over the world. And like and so your actual staff are not all in England as well? Are they? You have some remote? Are they remote maybe in England?
Our clients are more worldwide. Like, I don't think we have a single client in Portsmouth. Like, we know we're not sort of local focused. But our team are pretty local. We've I think the reason for that is that we tried fully remote and struggled with it. I found that we were missing some of that culture, and I like getting face to face. Like, I think that's the human first sort of part of me, I guess, that sometimes you just can't beat being in the office. Like, I love being in the office with the whole team, and you end up having conversations about random stuff that you would never have had over Teams, because it would just be so out of the blue. Last week we all met as a team and we went bowling, and I think that some of that stuff, it seems cliche, but it's really important. Like, I genuinely like doing it. And I think for what we do as well, like, a lot of our work's quite collaborative, and you can't replicate the feeling of sitting in a room and just brainstorming something, whether it's a campaign or a new client that we're trying to work with. So yeah, our clients are all over the place, but our team is pretty local. Just because we do like to have those face to face days.
And what is your reality of kind of hybrid working? Are you in?
Good question.
Yeah, is it maybe it's a movable feast? Is it or?
Yeah, it's. I think it's an endless quest to try and find the best way of doing it. So currently we meet twice a month as a full team. The rest of the time we're from home. There's a chance that could increase, but I don't think we would ever go past, say, like 1 day a week in the office. And the beauty as well is that we have people in our team who have family in other countries, for example. and we have a work from anywhere policy. So, there's a woman on our team who's all her family lives in Bulgaria. So, a few times a year, she goes back to Bulgaria for a couple of weeks, just continues working as normal. You wouldn't really even know, but she gets to see her family, and that's really important. So, yeah, that policy is really helpful.
Fab, yeah. Our biggest client at the moment is a Series B SaaS that's actually based in Belfast, but completely scattered. There's nearly 100 headcount now, but they're all over the world, and they're like fully remote, but they get together 3 times a year, the entire company, and it just happened last week, and it's always in Belfast. And even though all the work we do for them is remote, I get to be at their offsite with them, and it's like, for me, it's amazing as well. But I just get to, this moment where they all come together again, and sometimes they're growing so quickly that every time they get together, there's like 20 people in the room that have never physically met all their colleagues, and they've maybe spent at that point, months on remote calls. And it's just amazing seeing them for the first time walk into the room, and
It was
like,
like
oh my
that
goodness.
after COVID, wasn't it? Like
Oh yeah,
our
yeah.
team grew and changed, and then we all met up for the first time, and it was lots of, oh, you're a lot taller than I.
That's the one, isn't it? You're like, oh, okay.
Stuff like that, it's it's really weird seeing people that you feel like you know really well, but you've never met them.
Yeah,
It's quite a bizarre sensation.
my brother's a software developer, and I remember he had like it must have been like the 2022 Christmas party or something, was like the first time his colleagues had got together physically in like a year and a half. And he says it was bonkers. The people that he'd worked with for, really a long time, only ever through the screen, and were suddenly in a room together, and that, I totally get that human connection. And it's, it's the thing we're trying to replicate, isn't it? In terms of the content, and like bringing that, like all that goodness and all that purpose of connecting as humans into the content. I mean, do you want to dive a little bit into that? I know we're kind of bouncing between things, but like, it feels fundamental to me that you're like presenting as real humans and humanizing the brand as well, like through content. Tell me a little bit more, I guess, how that fits in with the human first approach.
So I think it's there's two sides to this. One is the customers, and one is the team. So I say this so often that my team are probably absolutely sick of hearing me say it, but businesses are just one group of humans trying to provide value to another group of humans. When you really boil it down, we think of B2B and B2C, but really it's just humans to humans and so on. So we're always looking for ways to, how can we bring the team forward? How can we involve the team in the marketing so that when someone encounters your brand, they're not just encountering a logo or a color palette or a selection of fonts, that they're seeing people, they're seeing the real people that work there, and getting a feel for the culture of the organization. And then the other side is the customers. So how do we involve customers in marketing? And there's lots of psychological reasons why that's effective in terms of just as a marketing technique, social proof, seeing what other people are doing, seeing that someone else has bought this product. You talked earlier about customer testimonials. Those things are obviously really effective. But it's also making sure that the marketing we create is designed for our audience, and we're not falling into the trap of thinking of our customers as data points in a spreadsheet, or there's a classic example of two customer profiles that have exactly the same like demographics, like year they were born, where they were born, like their interests, blah blah blah, and then you zoom out and it's King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne, and you sort of think, okay, well, does it work then? Because you're not going to be able to market to Ozzy in the same way you're going to be able to market to the king of the country. So there's a lot in the book about understanding your audience, and that goes beyond just demographics, and it's more about understanding them emotionally, understanding the context that they're living in at the moment, how they behave, how they make decisions. It's kind of trying to move away from just generic demographic based customer profiles and actually starting to almost come to terms with the fact that you're not going to be able to create a box where you go, this is my customer, because these are people. They're all dramatically different. So it's just trying to understand the commonalities of what their day-to-day life is like and what it is they're looking for and what they're experiencing.
And how do people go about accessing that sort of those different pieces of information that aren't, I guess, data points? Are you talking about customer interviews and spending more time, talking to your customers and trying to discover that thing, or looking deeper into who are your customers already, or what practical ways do people achieve that?
I feel like you're setting me up here to talk about something from the book, so I'm going to...
Oh, okay. I wasn't totally into. It's not on my list, but yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So in that chapter, I've created something that I call the EMPATH framework, which is a tool for understanding your audience. And I love an acronym.
Good. Yes.
Anyone who's read the book will know I love an acronym. So the E in this stands for emotional understanding. And for me, like, one of the most emotional places are reviews. Just the internet generally, to be honest, on social. And so one of the things I suggest doing is collating all of the reviews that you have, collating reviews from your competitors, looking at forums, looking on social, searching for keywords to see people discussing things. So for me, that might be searching social media agency and just seeing what people are saying. And what I then do is I would bring all of those things together and probably get AI to review it and analyze it, and then find me the common emotional words that keep coming up. Almost create a word map, of the emotions that seem to be appearing. I'm going to wheel through this because this could take ages. The M is for market trends. So this is about understanding the world that your customers are living in, what's happening with the economy, what's happening in their industry. These are really important things. The P is for patterns of behavior. So a lot of this comes from data you could draw from your website, in terms of seeing how people interact with your site, how long do they spend on it, how many times do they visit it before they actually get in touch or buy something. I put out a poll yesterday because I'm reviewing our marketing strategy at the moment for Giraffe, and I'm using this framework, and I wanted to know how people search for agencies. If you're a senior marketing person, where do you start? What's your behavior for finding? And it was interesting that more people seem to start by asking someone for a recommendation than they do a Google search, which is pretty crazy, and really should shape how we're doing our marketing. So that's the P. The A is audience feedback. So you touched on it earlier, customer interviews. It's crazy to me how many businesses don't speak to their customers about this sort of stuff. We try and speak to our customers about, how did you find us? What was it about us that gave you the green flag? Were there any red flags that you thought a little bit worried about this? Or, it's interesting to find out what it is that made them pick us and what it is that they were experiencing when they were looking for an agency. T is for team feedback. And again, it's often overlooked, especially in like larger companies. So usually you're sitting on a gold mine of information because your sales team are speaking to prospects all day, every day. They see the patterns, they see what keeps coming up, what are the problems, what are the frustrations, what's the commonalities between the ones that convert and the ones that don't. And then also your team that are sort of customer facing, they know better than anyone what makes a happy client, what it is they're looking for, what criticism do you get. And then you bring all of those data points together and you create what I call a human understanding map, which is essentially a collection of kind of realities and trying to understand all of those things that we've just collected and put them into something that you can return to and understand. But I would also sort of reiterate that people are always changing. So this is something you should be doing at least once a year, because it always changes.
I love all of that. And there's so many almost new thoughts that people, anyone listening to this, I imagine are just going, oh, well, I've never done that bit, and I can totally see the value in it. I know, especially in the B2B world, there's a whole movement now to really dive into like gong interviews and, transcripts of sales calls or even, something, a deal you've lost. And I did just a great, a great chat to find out more about what went wrong or what they could do better, and even then just, as you say, piling all that into AI, looking for the patterns, pulling out, that's all great advice. I love that. Really practical.
Yeah, well, that was that was really key for me with the book, was to, yes, so it's great to stand there and say we should be doing more of this and we should be doing more of that, but I wanted to create some things that people could go and use like today. And I think with understanding your customer, a lot of the roadblocks are fear of negative feedback, fear of hearing something you don't really want to hear, which I fully get, but those are important conversations to have. And it's important to not live under a rock with these things and face up to them. And we've naturally, as a social media agency, we pour a lot of our time and effort into our own social media. And what I'm finding from all the research I'm doing at the moment is that your social media for a social media agency anyways is a portfolio, but it's not really how people are going to find us for our clients. So then you start thinking, okay, well, should we be doing more SEO, because that's often where this starts? Should we be doing more networking, because a lot of this is on recommendations? Doing more stuff like this, getting out on podcasts, going to events, So it's gonna have a bigger effect on our strategy for sure.
Yeah, it's like your customers could be a B2C brand, but then you're you're trying to put yourself out there, I guess, as it's completely a B2B relationship, and you're trying to market yourself in a completely different way to what you do for your customers, I guess, isn't it? It's almost like it's complete parallel or opposite world, actually tangential world. No, I love all of that. Thinking of diving into the book, and you've mentioned we touched on it there. Let's go for it. AI. That we've already listed in the flow of this conversation, talked about really useful, practical applications, really, of AI that we're both use in our daily lives. I mentioned before the call, it's something I think about a lot. It's almost fundamental to why I started the company. I've been a commercial filmmaker for the past 15 years, and that is, charging around the world, making commercial films for all sorts of businesses, but doing that in a really, fairly high production, beautiful way. And in the past couple of years, I've, so much more in the past 6 months, really. But, I think I saw a bit of this coming, and even just the post-pandemic acceptance of and actually embracing of lower production values in video production, user-generated content and content just produced on a phone is like the opposite world, I guess, to what I've been doing for the past 15 years. And I mentioned that there's loads of great things with AI, and as far as I can see, but I really, I suppose I push against, or I really wonder about the trust that is lost when brands create visual content, particularly solely using AI. The extreme example would be AI avatars of maybe completely fictitious people. And I've seen, you just scroll through LinkedIn today, you'll see companies saying, we will create user-generated content, fully created in AI en masse for you. And it doesn't make any sense to me. And actually scrolling down the comments of that, it's just full of, really? Where's the trust? How are your customers going to feel when they finally realize that none of these people are real and all of this recommendation is not is doing all the opposite of what real user-generated content actually does, which is delivers authentic social proof and shows people really liking a product and using it. So yeah, like, over to you. Where do you sit on all of those things I just talked about? How do you feel about maybe let's dive particularly into kind of visual content created solely using AI, and visual and I guess text content. You see comments and LinkedIn posts and all sorts of things done well or done really badly with AI.
I mean, it's an absolute can of worms, isn't it, Chris?
Isn't it? So it's yeah. Somebody should make a podcast all about it.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, I mean, I always say the same thing, that I'm not anti-AI, I'm anti-lazy AI.
Yeah, I love that.
It shouldn't be replacing humanity. It should be sort of supporting and helping and giving us the space to do more creative work. I would say on AI generated imagery, I mean, firstly, it's crazy impressive. Like, I'm a bit of a geek for tech and stuff, and
I like the word terrifying.
Yeah, equally terrifying,
creatively terrifying. Yeah.
But it's I would argue it's no real difference to stock imagery. In the sense that brands that use stock imagery, these aren't their people. These aren't, photos taken in their office. And I'm sort of equally against that, to be honest, as AI generated. The only difference is that at least the stock imagery, they usually have 5 fingers and, 2 legs, 2 arms.
Oh man, you still see it. You still see it. Absolutely.
I saw a great photo the other day. Someone had generated like a LinkedIn profile photo of themselves, and they just had 3 legs. It's just amazing.
Nothing to see here.
So yeah, I think AI is amazing, and I think naturally there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of insecurity, and I understand that. I think that's a completely plausible reaction to what is just unprecedented. I think when it first started to appear, I'd often compare it to when the internet first came out and say, I'm sure, I'm old enough to remember the sounds of a modem turning on and,
oh man,
all those sorts of things. And I remember at the time people having fear about the internet, and, my mum wouldn't bank on the internet for a very long time or buy something on the internet, or, researching something on the internet seemed a bit sort of like you were cheating. And whereas now we don't think of any of those things. And I do think we're at a similar point with AI, but I think AI is it's on another level. And I think that's why it's so hard to predict, because there's nothing in history that really replicates what's happening at the moment. And I think that the main thing is we have to embrace it. We can't fight against it, because it's not going to go anywhere. It's too useful and it's too good and it's getting better all the time. So we need to figure out how to use it effectively without losing the human touch. And I think that's why, the book is important. It's important why what you're doing is important, that we don't lose that human element. AI is great for admin, analysis, and to be fair, like, even as a sounding board sometimes to kind of bounce ideas off and just get a different opinion. But it can't replace humans in marketing. And I think that's going to become even more important, because I think smaller brands with smaller budgets will probably turn to AI more and quicker. So there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity there for small brands to say, actually, we're going to double down on posting photos of our team and being founder-led, or getting our customers involved in marketing. And what is already working well now will work even better in 2 years, 3 years' time. So that's why I think this is the right approach to take to marketing at the moment, because it will help you differentiate yourself.
I love that. It's even you mentioned like stock photography. So as a photographer by trade a long time ago, I always advocated just capturing great photography of your team or what your people doing today, and video as well. Like in the day, I've made so many videos over the years that were all about just humanizing a brand. So even, thinking of like a furniture manufacturing company or something like that. And I've been in the workshop, seeing the folks doing all the different processes and just showing that this is real. And these are people that love what they're doing and, put so much care and attention into it. Even last week at the offsite for that company, I took hundreds and hundreds of photographs, even as well as video because it's a fully remote company. It's just this big SaaS brand, but actually their thing and the thing that differentiates them is their people, and just seeing that there's these great humans, behind the brand is just, when you drip that out, it just creates so much more trust. I've heard people talk even about, you could, speaking stock photography these days, you could just throw up any, I could create any company brand and throw in some stock photos and just pretend to be something, but if you really want to, the trust element is just so critical to everything. People buy from people they trust. And I just feel like really humanizing the brand is so critical to that. And I remember, I think the first time I came across avatars was Synthesia, who kind of one of the big players in that world. But for past couple of years, they put the product out into the world saying this is just a really great way of creating internal training content at scale. You no longer have to hire a studio, get talent, write scripts. We can put a human-ish avatar, on screen for you and create this stuff at scale. But it was very specifically just for internal training coming in. I sort of thought, it's still not great. You're kind of showing that you don't really care that much about and you're not maybe instilling any brand values or whatnot, and not having your own staff produce that stuff. But I could sort of see what they're doing if it needs to be a massive scale. But I recently stumbled across them, and they were putting out, their whole focus has kind of understandably shifted to actually fake user-generated content, which is just a whole, it's not user-generated, it's computer-generated. It's I can't get my head around that one at all in particular. So that world of just completely faking something and it not being a real person even at all. I've some, you can create an avatar, of somebody in your company that's one step below, where it's actually a real personality or somebody connected with your company that you're maybe trying to create more and more content of, but it just feel like a completely fake person as a whole thing.
I don't really have many concerns about that. I don't think it's ever going to really take off, and this can get clipped up. And
yes, do you remember last year when you said, Phil, that'll never take off, that thing that is?
The reason for that is that I think we're already seeing in influencer marketing a bit of backlash in the sense of macro and mega influencers. People aren't trusting them as much because people are a lot more hyper aware of influencer marketing and the fact that these aren't just people who are saying, "Hey, this product's great." We know they're getting paid, which
and they have to on Instagram. They have to say they're getting paid, don't they?
And you have to claim it, and I think we're already seeing that. Most of the influencer campaigns we do at Giraffe now are with micro or nano influencers, and the reason for that is that their audiences they trust them more, and they're more particular about what they do and what they take on. So I sort of feel like if we're already starting to distrust real people because we think they're trying to market something to us, surely AI, we're going to go the same route, aren't we? And that these sort of AI avatars aren't going to necessarily have engaged audiences that want to know about their life because they don't have a life. I talk a little bit in the book about parasocial relationships and, people having these relationships with people they haven't met yet. I just can't see that happening with AI because there isn't the sort of authentic context of them living, it's.
Yeah. So what is the opposite of that? What in the book and in your kind of approach to human first marketing, what should companies be doing, particularly maybe thinking in terms of the audience of this podcast in the B2B world, like what sort of activities and what sort of content should people be doing either for their teams? And you mentioned like founder-led stuff. What do you recommend people do?
I think it starts with the principles at the beginning of the book, because most of the ideas and the techniques and stuff within the book, they only really work if you kind of have your stuff together. Assuming this is a family podcast, Chris.
I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
And I think that means being authentic and having values and a culture and these sorts of things. So, if you have all of that stuff down, my advice is don't overthink it. Get your team involved, see how they'd like to contribute, whether that's doing videos, blog posts, getting out to networking events, find what suits them and allow them to share without sort of overly policing it. Go for the authenticity piece. Most of my LinkedIn posts aren't me saying, hey, if you want to make another £1 million next year, if I had to start my agency again, here's the 5 things I'd, because I just find that stuff just really fake and sort of, it's not that these people don't know what they're talking about. I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they're really successful, but it's not very relatable. And it for me, I'd much rather share like, hey, here's how I messed up last week. here's what happened last week, and share the good and the bad. Because the number one currency for marketing is trust. And trust comes with, I always say trust starts with truth. You have to be real and you have to own the good and the bad, and people are more likely to believe, what you're trying to push and what you're trying to sell if they know that you're also really honest about stuff that maybe is less glamorous or less, of a positive. So that for me is what I always start with, is put out authentic content, get your team involved and start there. Our team love doing all sorts of marketing. I mean, obviously we're a marketing agency, so you'd expect that, but
you'd be in trouble if they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I just get out of their way. They know the brand, they know what we do, they know our culture better than anyone. So I let them come with the ideas and say, look, I think we should do this, we should do that. We're in the middle of relaunching our podcast, and we've got some really great people in our team who I've essentially said, look, this is the direction, but I want us to be real. Do what you think's best. Like, go out and make stuff, and let's see what we can learn. And I think that's the key is, and you sort of touched on it earlier, that you almost don't want your content to be like overly polished. You do want it to have an element of rawness. And, in the video world, an example I always use is Gary Neville's The Overlap Show on YouTube. I think it's called Stick to Football. And I just love how every episode starts with everyone kind of walking in to set, and there's like real conversations happening. It's like they've started rolling the cameras 10 minutes too early. But that makes you feel like you're in the room with them and that they're your mates, and that you're getting to see a side of them that you wouldn't see if they were on Sky Sports News
they're
or
pulling
something.
back the curtain, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes it all feel real and sort of more engaging. And that all happened in the pandemic. We had a supply and demand problem. We had people using their phones and going on social media. I think it was like 3 times as much, because everyone was just at home, bored. And then we also had a supply issue in the sense that we were all stuck at home with limited resources and still needed to create content.
Oh man, you should try being a traveling commercial filmmaker in the global pandemic. That's a whole story. Oh wow, yeah. Well,
So, but that was when needs must, and people started creating lower quality.
But it created a shift, didn't it? It just totally...
It resonated. I always use the example of I think it's Dior who did an advert for a new fragrance, and they spent millions on an advert. You know, it was sort of transnational. It was all these different places and celebrities and all these sorts of things. And then I think they had someone record it behind the scenes on a phone, and that got more views.
Yeah, brutal than the multi-million pound brand film, probably.
Thing that was scripted out and had music and had it, you know, and I think it's because people, they want that. They want real. They want something that feels authentic and they can connect with.
Yeah, totally. And it's yeah, for me, that whole mobile phone thing, I mean, whenever anyone says to me, oh, you know, mobile phone wobbly content, I kind of dive into the fact that works because it's authentic, you know. It's the authenticity that from just being real on camera. It's not, doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, terribly lit and wobbly. It's the fact that the people, the humans, are being themselves, and you are getting the real unscripted version of something, you know. And that's within the limitations of kind of remote production. That's what I try to capture with our clients, you know, is just these conversations and that real, encouraging people to be real, and that includes people, you know, multiple people in a company, usually more senior people, but sometimes it can be a technical thought leader as well, you know. And just having those, creating that real content, it's brilliant.
We've started to do this with Giraffe. We've a member of our team who does a lot of our video content. I've asked him to start just recording our office days and creating like vlogs of them.
I saw one of the recent ones. Yeah, we were all together and you were in the office and then walked down the street. And
it's not perfectly lit. It's a bit wobbly. But what it does is it captures the vibe of an office day at Giraffe. Like if you were at the day and you watch the video, you're like, oh yeah, that feels exactly like what it was to be there. And I feel like that's more important. I mean, it's great that people get to get a feel for Giraffe and who we are and what our team are like.
Great for recruitment, you know.
Oh, it's
a whole
the amount
thing,
of times,
you know?
Chris, that we get that. Do you remember when we're interviewing and people say, oh, I listened to the podcast, or oh, you guys are great on TikTok, or, you know, it always comes up. We've even had people turn up on their first day and be a little bit starstruck of like Bree on our team who's like does all our TikToks and stuff, and they're like, oh my God, you're Bree from TikTok.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And like that extends to, you know, being if you're in the B2B world, you know, being on a trade show and people just come up and go, oh, I've been listening to your podcast for a year, you know, I already know you. Or even just sales conversations, and you're like, I actually, you know, I know all about your product and I all know all about your team already. And just like I'm here to get a price and sign on the dotted line. Like the hard work has been done, you know, and that really it shortens sales cycles. It does all sorts of amazing stuff by just putting the team out there. I love it. I'm conscious of time, Phil, so I want to the last few minutes just to share with folks, like, what's the best way to connect with you, to find out more about what you're doing? Like, where would people find you?
Yeah, so connecting with me personally, probably LinkedIn's the place I'm sort of hooked up to the most, to an unhealthy amount of time. So you can find me on there, just search Phil Treagus-Evans. I'm on Instagram as well. Obviously Giraffe, the website's giraffesocialmedia.co.uk. But yeah, check out the book. The book's on Amazon. Thank you very much. I love my glamorous assistant.
Yeah. Is Amazon the best place for people to get it? It's kind of like the easiest, but
yeah, it's the easiest. It's the easiest place to get it. It's available as an ebook and as a paperback. There's a hardback on its way, and debating whether to do an audiobook. The main sort of thing there is I hate the sound of my voice.
Oh, look, AI will just do that for you, Phil. I've heard it's totally fine.
It would be very,
can you imagine,
anti-human for us to get anyone other than me to record it. So yeah, at some point I have to
plot twist. It's all done by computer. Yeah. No, look, I highly recommend the book. I've loved dipping in and out of it. I can't wait to be able to spend more time on it. I've really appreciated this conversation. I
been great.
suspect it'll not be our last.
I'm sure.
It's great that everything you're doing is kind of so aligned, I guess, with what we're doing as well. And as you say, there's just this kind of understanding seems to be, and enthusiasm for thinking more about the humans first in all the marketing that companies are doing. And I think the book's just a wonderful, as almost playbook, as I say, to diving into all aspects of that. And so many parts of it, I think people will just have real aha moments where they kind of didn't think how to apply stuff, or just new ways of thinking about things as well. It's really, some of it's really refreshing, and kind of, we didn't get into pinball machines and all sorts of other great thoughts, but maybe in another conversation. But there's some wonderful
absolute teaser there, Chris.
I know you like that.
Pinball machines, part 2, right?
Folks will have to just buy the book, to find out what that's all about. But look, I really appreciate your time, Phil. It's been a really cool conversation, and as I always, for me as a solo founder diving into all of this stuff, it's just really cool to have a conversation about humanizing marketing. And thank you so much.
I couldn't turn down being on a podcast called Human Marketing. That would be, I'd have to just hand the book in, I think, at that point. So it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we get a chance to do it again.